It was really about how can I keep what's so incredibly beloved and special and bring it into the sequel without repeating and making the same movie, but just 29 years later. So, yeah, I couldn't touch the first movie. This had to be a whole new film entirely with the same beloved characters, hopefully with fun story, great other characters, bringing Billy back. I wanted to bring Binks back, but, well, you'll have to see. Did Binks come back or did he not? I don't know. Taking the elements from the first movie, the things that fans, because we are making this movie and have made this movie for the fans, and obviously newcomers, but we're here for them. We've made this for them. Disney made this for them. So taking the elements that were beloved, or what I think are completely beloved from the first movie, and bringing it into the sequel without it being the same, it wasn't that it was difficult or that it was easy. It was just a constant on my mind. I was consistently thinking about it. So making sure that I was servicing the characters and being truthful to the characters for the fan base, and keeping all the great little nuggets that are actually part of the witches' characters, which would have to come into this movie, and making sure that the tone was somewhere in the ballpark of the first one, so you have this beautiful 1-2 punch of the Sanderson Sisters. The biggest challenge on this movie, it's hard to say. I think, and it's probably not that interesting, I think the lack of time. We had a very short window to make this movie, and I wanted to make a giant film because that's how I see this movie. That's how I see a lot of the movies that I make. And so I wanted it to be giant, and yet we had a very small window. So I kept pushing the giantness of the movie, but in this tiny little space. I think that might be the biggest challenge that we had on this movie, or at least I had on this movie. Probably not that interesting, but I would say, the team was fully prepared and I had the best crew. So that wasn't a challenge. It was really the time. Sarah Jessica, Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy. The very first time I got to see them in costumes was actually Bette and Kathy for our hair and makeup tests. And they very wildly and amazingly to be a part of and to watch. It slipped into those characters instantaneously as if they just played these roles. It was wild and a trip to watch and then be a part of. And then on set, when you had all three of them together, it's like they're a jazz band, really. And then maybe this will make sense to some and maybe not others, but each you listen and you hear and you play your note when it's just music. They are musical when they act together, and they know how to play those instruments beautifully and together so that you have magic. I shot this movie where I kept the three of them in frame a lot and didn't have to cut so much performance or time or anything or rhythm, because it's the gold that you have with all three of them playing their instruments at the same time in such beautiful harmony. It's magical, to say the least. Yes, we did. We played around a little bit with improv. As I said, we had a very short window to make this movie, so we stayed. We had the script for sure and stayed on that path. But from time to time, a handful of times, some of the witches would improvise. Kathy and Bette would just have a heyday here and there, and it's. They should. They know their characters way more than anyone else, and they're brilliant at this. So the more the merrier. Well, The musical numbers, I think, were important to the fans, right? Because this is the second movie, and it is paying homage, and it is Bette Midler, and you want to see her sing, and you want to see her sisters sing along with her. I Put a Spell on You in the first movie is so good and so beloved. Mark Shaman and arranged it, and he and Bette did the lyrics, and we wanted to do the same thing. You can't really compete with that song because it's already perfect. So we just did what worked for our movie. And again, I'm not, musical numbers take a little bit longer to shoot, learn, record. There's a lot more involved in it. So I ended up, we have one giant number and one little taste that I won't talk much about. But yeah, I mean, I think we have everybody to thank, I guess, if you're going to use those words. We have everybody involved along with the fans of why we have any musical numbers in the movie, because of I Put a Spell on You from the first movie, for sure. I love walking the line. It's my favorite thing in the world to do, is walking the line of comedy, real drama, like emotional drama, and now horror. It's fun for me. And by the way, Wes Craven was the master at it. Every one of his horror films, there was a sense of humor to it. There is a fine line. There's a fine line between horror with a little twist of comedy. That's what's so much fun about this movie, is that everything's bigger than life, right? So they're constantly threatening to kill you. And by the way, they could in that fast. Yet they don't. And they get distracted very easily. So that was fun for me, and it's my sweet spot of where I like to play as a director, is the combination of these things together. Is my most favorite thing to do. So this was a blast for me. And some of our scares for me, it was, it's a roller coaster ride. You're terrified as you're going up the hill, absolutely scared, screaming, and it drops, and then you're laughing your head off. And so those were the kinds of scares I really wanted to reach for in this movie.